You heard Secretary Revel this morning say that the Commonwealth's effort to close the achievement gap is focused on two areas. One having to do with the quality of schools and the academic environment, what happens within the school. Tom is going to talk about that. But the other thing that the other bedrock of our approach is also what happens in the lives of kids and their families as they come to school. It's a focus on the non-academic environment and the kinds of non-academic supports, et cetera, that we provide for kids. And the importance of those supports, the importance of having a holistic approach if, in fact, we are going to impact the achievement gap and encourage academic access for as many young people as possible. There's a billboard that I pass on my way to work every day. I live in Boston, in one of Boston's most impoverished neighborhoods. And the billboard that I come under every day reads, "The way out of poverty is a high school diploma." It is a message that resonates for me every day when I see it, and that I hope resonates for many others in my community. And it underscores the fact that closing the achievement gap not only has implications for academic success, but to the extent that we are able to assist and support young people in completing their high school educations and certainly going further. And some of what you heard statistics from Professor Heckman earlier that also talks about the other social implications that result from young people finishing school. The reductions in incarceration, the increased opportunity for their kids to do better, etc. So there is a vested interest in the part of the human services community in supporting and ensuring that the work that we're doing within our education systems works. I don't know how many of you, so I'll just ask for a show of hands, how many of you have heard or know of the personal background and history of our governor, Governor Patrick? Well, most of you do, or many of you do, so I'll just give you a snippet of it. Our governor originally is from the south side of Chicago. He is the child of a single parent who had two children, he and his sister. And he tells the story about how their struggling family, in fact, lived in a one-bedroom apartment where on every third night, one of them would sleep on the floor. And he tells that story to emphasize the financial struggles that his family endured, in spite of the fact that he was a very bright young man with great academic potential. It hadn't occurred to him that he would ever go to college, primarily because of the academic environment in which he was learning. But he was fortunate because he was bright and because he had teachers and people around him who recognized that. He was fortunate to be able to be referred to a program that resulted in his being able to complete his high school, to attend and complete his high school education in Milton, Mass. And Milton Academy. And that was the beginning of his academic and his future professional success. So for our governor, the quest for educational excellence and ensuring that every young person in the Commonwealth has the same opportunity for a quality education that he had, is the passion and the commitment that has driven his quest to make Massachusetts the best in the nation. And that is, those are bragging rights that we currently enjoy. You heard Secretary Revel reference a little bit of some of the success, some of the evidence of the documentation of those bragging rights earlier. I won't detail them further, but either Tom or I are happy to reinforce them for anybody who may want to hear them after this presentation. The details of our success, though, don't tell the full story. A national pre-kindergarten study that was completed in 2003-2004, the academic year 2003-2004, that reviewed data of state-funded pre-kindergarten programs found that Massachusetts had the fifth highest number of students expelled from preschool. Expelled from preschool. Imagine what it's like to start your school education, your career, being expelled from preschool. An article in this past Tuesday's Boston Globe highlighted the extraordinary rate of school-initiated arrests in 3 school districts, Boston, Springfield, and Worcester. Though all 3 school districts have made significant improvements that have resulted in declines in these rates over the 3 years of the study, the rates still remain too high and disproportionately reflect on the achievement of black students, disproportionately affect black students. While Massachusetts can proudly boast of its achievements in the education arena, to the credit of our governor, our education secretary, the legislature, and the education community, our attention and resources are most focused on those at the margins, students who have dropped out or remain in school but are not achieving at their full potential. The Mass Bar Association, starting with Kay Hodge as president, has focused on creating opportunities for lawyers to work on behalf of children in their communities and schools. And yet, in spite of our best efforts, there's a persistent achievement gap between our successful students and many students who are overwhelmingly Black, Hispanic, or for whom English is not their native language. The governor has noted that there is still an inescapable correlation between the socioeconomic status and education achievements, between our childhood zip code and their future achievement. If we want to finish the work of Thurgood Marshall and make educational opportunity available to all students, it's imperative that we embrace and address the problem of poverty, and that we give equal attention to what is happening to our students outside the school building, as we have given to what's happening in the school building. I want to talk briefly about the collaborations that are occurring across state government in Massachusetts, and to address the specific needs of underperforming students and the opportunities that I see for members of the bar. In 2008, our governor established what we call the Child and Youth Readiness Cabinet by executive order. Its purpose is to foster coordination and collaboration across state departments and agencies that serve Massachusetts children, youth, and families. The cabinet is co-chaired by Secretary Revel as the Education Secretary, and by my boss, the Secretary for Health and Human Services, Dr. Judy Ann Bigney. But it also includes just about every secretary within state government. I think the 2 exceptions are energy and environment, and energy and transportation, and I could argue that it should include those as well. But it includes our Executive Office of Administration and Finance, Housing and Economic Development, Labor and Workforce Development, Public Safety and Security, and the Office of the Child Advocate. And it also involves commissioners from several agencies within our Executive Office of Health and Human Services, as well as Education. The Cabinet has 2 priority areas of focus for its work, consistent with the governor's youth-related priorities: closing the achievement gap and the elimination of youth violence. Closing the achievement gap is central to all of the Commonwealth's education initiatives. The Patrick Murray administration believes that by mitigating the effects of poverty, all students' socio-economical, social, emotional, behavioral, physical health, and non-academic needs. And if we do those things, we will close the achievement gap. In 2010, the governor signed into law the Achievement Gap Act, which requires the state's lowest performing schools, which we call Level 4 schools, to include strategies for addressing these non-academic needs of students as part of their school redesign plans. To reinforce this expectation, the legislation requires that the Executive Office of Health and Human Services, as well as the other cabinet secretaries, respond to the needs of children and their families and work with school districts to ensure a holistic response to child and family needs. The cabinet is committed to working with these school communities to better equip school personnel, including teachers and service providers, to meet the needs of the whole child and ultimately to improve outcomes for all children. Our work closing the achievement gap focuses on 13 elementary, middle, and high school underperforming schools in 3 communities where dropout rates are high, attendance rates are low, and student achievement on standardized tests is low. Those communities are Holyoke, Springfield, and Worcester. There are are also schools with significant percentages of low-income students, students of color, and students whose native language is not English. Landmark federal and state legislation established school breakfast and lunch programs was based on a recognition that the student who comes to school hungry has difficulty focusing and being able to learn. Likewise, the command to provide a holistic approach to closing the achievement gap is designed to address the non-academic distractions in students' lives. Students who are traumatized by witnessing domestic violence at home or in the community, who themselves may be victims of violence. Students whose families are experiencing financial strain, whose parents are regularly having to make decisions between paying rent or purchasing food, and who may be facing homelessness. Students whose primary caregiver may be out of work and searching for a job. Students struggling to balance the expectations of this new culture with the demands and expectations of the culture in which their parents grew up. Students facing arrest or conviction. Students whose parents' own academic experience was painful and who perhaps themselves have limited ability to support their child's academic success. We believe that every parent wants their child to succeed. Our challenge is to figure out how to engage parents whose primary focus may be on survival and meeting their family's basic needs. How do we address the non-academic needs of these students and their parents? The Achievement Gap Act requires that all agencies of state government that share a role in the delivery of services to children and their families develop a holistic approach to meeting the needs of families and youth that contributes to student engagement and learning. I read with interest, Paul, the ABA Commission on Youth at Risk report and their recommendations on improving access to quality education for homeless youth and young people in foster care. And I commend you for placing emphasis on these populations. I noticed with interest, though, that little to no attention was paid to issues outside of the school environment, and that these young people need and face the issues that these young people face and the implications that they have for school performance. Here's where we need your help. We're faced with what I call the challenge to protect and serve. How do those of us outside the education community, who are committed to ensuring that every child who has the resources and support needed to finish high school and pursue a college education or a career, how do we balance the need to protect the confidentiality of students and their families, as reflected in the myriad privacy laws and policies, while providing the assistance and support needed to meet basic needs or address the health, behavioral health, or other social emotional needs? Of course, the easy answer is informed consent, and in many cases, case-by-case assessment and intervention based on consent may be required. But I fear an individualized approach will be inefficient and will limit our ability to serve as many young people as possible, and families, as many families as possible, as may be needed, to really close the achievement gap. Your assistance is needed in helping to determine whether there are ways to systemically honor and implement the who, what, where, when, and why standard questions that guide any process to decide if personal information can be shared. Years ago, when he was chief legal counsel to Governor Michael Dukakis, Steve Rosenfeld made the observation that a good lawyer provided advice to his clients not just on what they could do, but how to lawfully do what they wanted to do. There are numerous laws that exist to protect the rights of children and families. Please work with those of us in the human services community to better understand how to work within the parameters of the law to marry the knowledge, resources, and skills we have about what works in the non-academic lives of students and their families, with the improvements being made in the academic arena to provide the best opportunities for student success. There's a rich tradition in Massachusetts of the legal community coming together, working with community leaders and state officials to craft solutions